Hey there, it's me, Ted from Ted Liggins Fishing Life, here to do the recap of my Bite of the Day videos from October. We're almost into December, but at least I finished this one, or fit this one in 1 month instead of having to do 2 like I did the last month. Sorry about that, guys, but actually I wanted to film this on the water, but my van's broken down, so I'm stuck in the shop. Haven't been on the water in a while. Did sneak it out on a roundabout once, but there was a cold front, so this post-cold front, super slow day. Actually, I'm in the bar, my Lincoln Lounge, which is in my studio, because it's really cold out there, and I haven't had a chance to film this during the day. So here we are. Check out my bar. You've been here before. If you've watched my swim bait unboxings, actually, it's almost all my swim baits behind the bar on the other side of the wall. It makes for a nice little bar display, don't you think? I think so. But I'm out of whiskey. Gonna have to pour myself a tequila. Also in honor of Art Basel, which is going on right now, I have one of my Miami shot glasses that I bought one Art Basel in a time of need at a gift shop. I usually like to go down, or I usually am in Miami every year for this big art festival, or art convention more like, and I've been fitting in some peacock bass fishing trips the last couple, but my van's broken down and I just couldn't make it down this year. But so to all my Art Basel friends, cheers. I'll see you soon, or at least next year, I hope. Ooh. Ooh. So yeah, we're here to talk about the Bite of the Day from October. At least I fit this one in still November. It's almost December, but not 2 like I did last month. Had to do that a couple times lately. You know, life kind of gets busy. I've been pretty good about keeping up with the Bite of the Day. I haven't really missed maybe 1 or 2 all year, maybe 3. But, you know, that's not bad. 2 a week. Always trying to find a good video to edit for you guys. And actually some of the ones the last couple days or couple weeks have been ones that were older just because I haven't been able to fish. Van's broken down. Hopefully it'll be fixed this week and I'll be back on the water. So keep your eyes open for new catches. But we're gonna start this catch, or this Bite of the Day review, with bite number 163. And if you watch my channel, you know that I mostly fish out of my boat or out of my roundabout. But this was a little different. I fished off the bank, and not even around here. It was down in Tampa. I had to drop off a piece of art I had sold to a friend of mine, and I was thinking of bringing my boat and trying to hit either like Hernando or Henderson on the way home, but things just got too crazy, and luckily I hit up Eve Fish a Lot on Instagram, and she gave me some pointers on where to go in Tampa. We didn't actually get to meet up because of her work schedule that day, but before I get into all that, why don't we watch this Bite of the Day, bite number 163, me bank fishing on a canal in Tampa. I knew those were bass out there. Better. Another one. A little bigger. It's about the same size. A little fat. bank fish. In fact, I grew up bank fishing. I actually got into mountain bike racing and riding because my parents bought me a mountain bike instead of a BMX bike because I was riding so far to get to my fishing spots. I actually used to ride across town also on the weekends when I wasn't fishing to go to Gary's Tacklebox and figure out how to spend my $5 allowance every week. Spend a couple hours bugging Gary and the other old employees there. So that's how I ended up working with them. If you don't know, I fix Shimano reels for Gary's now on the side. It's one of my side jobs. But yeah, let's get to the bite. Number 163, like you saw, bank fishing in Tampa. And like again, I have to thank Eve Fish-A-Lot for setting me up with that spot. She gave me a little Google map point, told me where to park, and just said fish over here somewhere. And as you can see, I found a spot where there was some kind of drain meeting up with the main canal. I don't know if it was an actual drain or part of the canal, but it was a side body of water meeting the main canal. And I could see bass feeding on shad right there. But I tried I tried a bunch of different lures. I tried a spinnerbait, I tried a chatterbait, I tried a topwater, which I think I got one blow up on the popper. Tried to gunfish, no love. What else did I try? I tried a little square bill, but it wasn't until I tied on this little tiny Berkeley jerkbait. It's the smaller juke, which I haven't heard anyone talking about this bait except for me, but it's pretty amazing. It's a small, shallow suspending jerkbait. So it dives to 2 to 4 feet, but suspends. And this is in a very natural kind of ghost color. It's just like a teal blue on top and kind of clear on the bottom. And this thing is magical when they're eating those tiny shad. Because here, like in the summer or in the fall, well, a lot of the time of year, our shad are really small, even smaller than this. This is just a little bit bigger. It's got a little bit of noise. It's not really loud at all, but just a tiny bit. Enough that I think they can see it or notice it. Sometimes I think they get conditioned to the rattle of, say, like a lipless or whatnot, especially the schoolies. Like you catch 1 or 2 and then that's it. If you even get a bite, if somebody had already been there with a lipless before you, you might not get a bite that day. So I was on foot that day, so I didn't carry a lot of rods with me. I was kind of limited. I only grabbed a few. One of them was my topwater rod, which you guys have seen before. And here it is set out now, but this is not actually the topwater rod you've seen recently because I broke that one fishing in one of these other Bite of the Day videos. I didn't show that in the video. But my old rod, I have it right here, didn't throw it out. It was an old Bass Pro Shop Bionic blade. See, I smacked it against my topwater got stuck in a tree and I tried to pop it out and I smacked it really hard against the side of the boat, against the gunnel, and it broke. This thing's from the 90s, so I mean it made it a pretty long way. I save all my broken rods though, that's why I brought it out, to cut off all the guides and take any other parts off of it that I might need to fix a rod or modify a rod somewhere down the line. So don't just throw away your rods. Some rare rods have some kind of warranty or some kind of replacement plan. This thing was so old and basically was given to me, I just kind of let it go as that. So I'm gonna cut these guides off and take a few other parts off of here and keep the parts as backup parts. So I had to go back to this All-Star, which was one of my topwater rods before I got that one, which is also from like the late 90s, early 2000s, which is basically almost the same thing. I just liked the grip on this little more. It had a little hump in it, made it easier to walk a bait. This is also a cork handle, which I pretty much only want cork handles. I can't always afford to get the rods with cork handles, but they make a big difference just because it feels right to me. I think it's because I grew up fishing cork. There's nothing wrong with EVA, but it just doesn't feel right to me. But there's a little EVA front. But yeah, this rod is the same 6.6 medium heavy, but these are the older style medium heavy, so it's a little whippier than a new version of the same rod power. And I like the 6.6, like I've said before, for topwater and for jerk baits. I usually use a 6.7. I have a specific jerkbait rod, but since I was on foot that day, I didn't bring both, because this will work as a jerkbait rod better than my jerkbait rod will work as a topwater rod for the way I fish topwater. So I put on a jerkbait, and I also run the little Owner hyper clips, welded clips, so switching between jerkbait and topwater is pretty easy if I only have one rod. And I run braid to leader for my jerkbaits as well, so it's a little heavier leader with this. I run the 17 on here. Usually I'd be running 14, but I mean, as you saw, I was fishing in canal, dirty water, not very deep, so it didn't really matter. I was still able to cast this little tiny, or not tiny, but this kind of small jerkbait, and it was the key. Like, I got one bite, landed it, threw it out, a couple more casts, got another one. I think I caught 4 in total. I think there's 3 in the video. 4 in total in about 10 minutes, and then they kind of shut off, and I came back later, caught a couple more, but nothing any better than those originals, so I didn't make a video about those. So yeah, when you're on the bank, sometimes you can't carry as much, obviously, so you can't carry as much specialized gear. You have to bring rods and reels that are more general purpose and good at a few things. So I think I had this. I had a spinning rod with like 10-pound test and a 6-pound mono leader, braid to leader. And then I had a heavier rod, my Corrado 7.6 fluoro jigging rod with 50-pound braid on it in case I wanted to throw anything punching or heavier, or even a small swim bait, which I had with me in my bag. But it was a lot of fun. I only had a few hours to fish, but you know, thanks again to Eve Fish a Lot for putting me on the spot. I met her through some of those online Instagram tournaments I do, put on by Finding Bass by Lewis, Finding Bass with Lewis. It's a fun little online Instagram thing he does every month during the summer. But she does it. She's in the Tampa area. We've still yet to meet because she had to work that day. But one of these days I'll be back in Tampa, and her and I, you and I, we're going to meet up and fish. Or, you know, come up here. I'll show you some of Gainesville's spots. In my boat, hopefully. But yeah, don't throw away your broken rods without stealing the parts off of them. It's always a good idea. What are we up to? We're up to bite number 164. This is me fishing one of my top 2 favorite topwaters, the gunfish on Rodman Reservoir. There's a bunch of videos here in this month's bite of the day out of Rodman. I got on a good bite, so for about 2 or 3 weeks, it was the only place I fished. It's not just me though. I have a lot of watch me fish in there, my buddy Calvin. But first bite, the first good fish we caught was on a Luckycraft gunfish. But before I get into the details, why don't you watch this bite of the day. That's a good one. Another good one. Dude. Come here. Come here, girl. You're fighting me in that current. Another few pounds. If you watch my videos, gunfish isn't new, especially this small. This is the 95. This is the exact one in that video. And if you look, it's all beat up. I mean, there's some hook rash, but a lot of the paint is gone. This thing gets munched. forget which color it is, but it's like the IU Shiner or something like that. It's kind of a ghost shiner color. And it's, again, a small bait. And they've been eating small bait fish everywhere around here, so for this. But they didn't want a popper that day. We tried a popper. I tried everything. Actually, that day was really, really slow until we were moving spots near the end of the day, and I decided to go to this area that I had checked out on Google Maps but never actually gone and fished it. And we had had enough rain that by looking at the map, I was like, there should be water flowing there. And there was. There was a lot of water flowing there, and there was a lot of bass there. And it was the first spot out of the whole day that we found with fish. I even missed the first fish I caught on video because I forgot to turn my camera on. It had been hours since we'd even gotten a bite. Just kind of forgot to turn my camera on. Luckily, it reminded me to turn the camera on, so I got that one on film, which was a little better fish. But that spot's pretty classic. There's a basically like an old, I don't say roadbed, but some kind of underwater structure where it goes from 6 feet up to 4 feet, and the current comes down through that canal after heavy rain. And then there's another cut coming from the main river that feeds in right there. And so in this few 100-yard area, there's two major different currents meeting, and then a nice flat about 6 feet deep with tons of cover, mats and pads, and then, like I said, a little hump up to 4 feet. And that first day, they were just sitting right on the edge of that hump behind that mat of hyacinth that I caught this fish off of. And we caught a bunch of fish that day from that area, but that was the first one. And like I said, I was with my buddy Calvin, who's coming up in the next bite. But gunfish, same topwater rod and reel, but it was the same broken rod. But oh yeah, the reel is the Shimano SLX XT with 30-pound braid, X9 braid to 17-pound trilene mono leader. And one of the reasons I can use this setup to throw that small jerkbait and my small topwaters is this reel, this Shimano SLX XT. It is awesome for casting, I wouldn't say bait finesse or finesse weight stuff, but the lighter end of what you would want to cast with a bait caster. That's what I throw that Yozuri popper with. The Berkeley popper is actually tied on there right now. This gunfish, I can almost spool the reel sometimes. I can cast this well and accurately. Not only does it cast this, maybe not as well as I could with a spinning rod, but it is super accurate with this rod setup. So that's why I throw it on, I could get away with throwing it on this. My actual jerkbait reel is a different reel, but the, what is it, the 2018 Bass Rise, and it's basically a Casitas with a magnetic cast control. And that is the best lightweight reel I've ever tried. It's a little bigger than this, and this fits better in the palm of my hand. So with a walking the dog movement, it's a little easier for me to hold the SLX. This is a 150. Even though the Bass Rise is a 150 size as well, it sits a little higher on the reel seat. But with a jerkbait, it's a little more, it's not quite the same movement, and I get away with it. I can't walk a bait or jerk a jerkbait the way you see the pros where they point down like that. They'll be fishing like this. I can't even do it. I have a huge metal plate in my arm from a mountain biking accident, so I can't do that downward movement like that. I have to twitch, which kind of makes me hold the reel a certain way, and so I have to palm it to be able to walk the dog. So that was another reason I love the XT. For a little while I was running my Casitas before I lost the side plate overboard, and now I can't find one, as my topwater reel because it casted such light lures. But then I found this SLX XT, and it cast almost as good, pretty close. But it fits better in the hand. And most of my topwaters aren't quite as light as some of my jerkbaits, believe it or not. Well, we're up to bite number 165. And this one is my buddy Watch Me Fish, Calvin, but he's Watch Me Fish on Instagram. Check him out. He's always commenting and liking my stuff, so you can find him through me. This was our next trip to Rodman. Like I said, I went to Rodman a bunch, either by myself or several trips with him in this couple weeks or a few weeks where this bite was happening, or this area where a bite was happening. But before I get into it, why don't you watch the video and check out my buddy catching his first punching bass, number 165.
Oh, Ted, go back, go back.
Go.
You got a big one.
All right, keep pulling. You got to pull him out of there. You don't just hold him. What pound test is that?
65.
Oh, wait.
Oh, still there?
Your line is right here.
Okay.
Your line broke in the middle. He's still on there. Here, grab that. There he is. There he is.
Yeah. Dude. Nice, dude.
I looked over there and I saw the whatever the letters twitching in a weird way, and I saw it.
Sad too. Hell yeah, dog.
I was like, wait a minute, we're not done.
Hey, he's not that big, but hey, I'll take it, man.
No, that's your first punching fish. That's a legit punching fish too.
Yeah.
So this isn't Calvin's first appearance on the Bite of the Day. He's had a couple now. He fishes with me a lot, and I'm glad I'm finally catching some of his stuff on film. There's been a couple where I missed it. It's kind of hard when you're filming your co-angler, but luckily that's one of the reasons I like the hat cam. All I have to do is look at him. I don't have to think about turning towards him, and I can catch the bite. This was dramatic. His first punching bass, I mean, if you live in Florida, punching is kind of a way of life for a lot of bass fishermen, but also you can get away with not doing it. But there are times when that's the only thing you can get back to where they are. And, you know, it's one of the few, it was one of the first dedicated setups I bought for fishing where I fish. It was a true punching setup. We're going to talk about his, so I don't have mine with me. But basically I run a 7.6 or 7.7 heavy with Shimano SLX MGL 70 with 65 pound straight braid, and that's all it does is punch. With that heavy of a line and that small of a spool, I can't make long casts, but it also stops it from puffing up when the weight drops. I don't get the spool puff as much. But I believe I had to write this down just so I would be able to remember. Calvin was throwing that on Abu Garcia Veritas combo 7'11" heavy 65 pound Power Pro, and he actually borrowed one of my 1.25 ounce tungsten weights, 2 bobber stops, to a straight shank Gamakatsu flipping hook, which I actually showed him how to tie the snell knot that day. If you're going to use a straight shank, tie a snell knot. There's no point to run a straight shank with any other knot. I personally don't ever run a straight shank. I always run an EWG. It just suits my style of hook set, I guess. I can't get fish on the straight shank, and tears up baits too fast. I end up losing bites because I'm hung up. I know, there's everyone but maybe me, Matt Allen from Tactical Bassin, and Miles from Sweetwater, Miles Burkhart, the MLF Pro. Those are the only other 2 guys I know. I've heard of a couple other people. I even think Seth Fighter also uses an EWG. And I think it just has to do with your hook set style. For me, it works. I mean, I've tried straight shank. I've caught fish on it, but I love my EWG, my Berkeley Fusion Superline 4/0. That's my go-to. But the Gamakatsu flipping hook is good too, the straight shank flipping hook. And he was throwing a Kinky Beaver because it is my boat. And if you ever watch my videos or are in my boat punching, you know that it's all about the Kinky Beaver maybe 80% of the time this is what I'm punching. I will change because it does have extra appendages and doesn't come through super thick cover as well as a Why Not or a BB Cricket. There's a couple other really slim ones that get through better. Those are the other two I tend to throw, is the Why Not or the BB Cricket. But I know we were punching that day with this Kinky Beaver. And as you saw, his line broke as he set the hook, and that was from a hook getting caught on his line on the spool. And he didn't tell me that happened until afterwards, but he had to pull it out and it frayed his line. So that goes to show you, if you get a little fray in your line, it's worth sacrificing all that line, cutting it off and tying a new knot. Because if that had been a bigger fish, he might not have stayed where he was. And luckily, it was where it was, and he broke off enough line that it was kind of wrapped up around the hyacinth. And so I just happened to look down and see the weeds moving, and I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And then I saw his line kind of straight across right into the hole. So just, you know, floored the trolling motor, grabbed the line, and we hand lined it in. So technically he's still caught his first punching bass that day with me. He has since broken his PB, actually in the same area of Rodman, punching a BB Cricket. He wasn't with me, he was with another friend of his, but I like to think that I helped. So cheers to you, watch me fish. It was a 6-pound something. I'll put a picture of it here as well so you can see it. But congratulations, Calvin, on a new PB punching. I'm pretty sure he's going to keep a punching rod on deck from now on as well. You have to in Florida. Whew. Tequila. So next up, Calvin again. Watch me fish. This is bite number 166. This wasn't the same day. This was another trip, but almost equally as dramatic. So I had to put it in. So he had a back-to-back bite in the day of the day. I think he's the only other angler only guest angler to have 2 in a row. So there you go, Calvin. This is 166. Before I explain everything, why don't you watch what happened? It's pretty amazing. 2 bass, hitting 1 lure, back to back. Here you go, bite 166.
Ooh, I heard that. That's a good one.
That's it.
Keep him pressure on it.
He's gonna jump.
Yeah, keep the rod down when he tries to jump.
Oh, you're right. Oh, he came
no,
back.
different. Different one. That's a different one.
Really?
Yeah. Mouth. That's a big one too. Or not as big as the last one, but still good. That's awesome.
Damn, dude. Bro.
When the bass are up in a certain area, sometimes they get really aggressive, and that bite of the day is an example. Oops, sorry, that tequila. That bite of the day is an example of what can happen, where he lost that fish, which we'll get into why he lost it, but as soon as that lure hit the surface, another fish grabbed it, because that other fish was following the original fish, probably trying to get that bait out of its mouth. Previously, in the week or 2 leading up to that, I'd seen that 3 times next to my boat, where either chatterbait or spinnerbait, even at topwater, I'd seen another bass trying to eat. Oop, something fell out of my studio. Something tried to eat what was in the other bass's mouth while I was weighing them in. And you know, I've seen that once or twice, but to see it 3 times in a row in a couple weeks, and then to see this happen, I don't know. They were schooling up, eating bait fish, super excited. That's what happens. Feeding frenzy kind of stuff. Unfortunately, the first fish was the bigger fish. A lot of times the first fish is the smaller fish because he's faster. But this time it was the bigger fish, and Calvin lost it. And you can hear me in the video telling him to put his rod tip down. And it's not something that is always explained very well to beginner fishermen. Not that Calvin's really a beginner, but you know, he's coming up and he's learning new techniques. And sometimes you can't just hook the fish and reel them in. Sometimes you have to play them right. And when you can start to feel the fish coming up, which also takes practice, you have to hook enough bass that jump to notice the feeling of the line moving up in the water instead of going down. A lot of times bass will either dig or come up. So if they're digging, obviously your line goes down. If they're coming up, your line will start to raise. And that's when you want to lower your rod tip. Almost sometimes in the water, depending on how much you think they're going to jump. And it might not stop them from totally jumping. They might have enough momentum to get their head out of the water or get a partial jump. But it has their head turned down already, which helps keep those treble hooks pinned. And it also helps to have a more moderate rod, which I think he had a 7 foot, what was it? I had to write it down. It was actually kind of a long, it was a loose 7 foot 11 classic combo. It's a little long to be casting walking topwater just because you need to walk it. And I don't like to throw topwaters on anything over, it has to be under 7 feet so I can be more accurate, because I like to put that treble hook topwater like in next to cover as close as I can. And I can bomb it pretty well with a 6.6 or a 6.7. I don't need the extra length. But, you know, when you only have so many rods, that was the rod he picked to throw that Berkeley, was it a cane walker, I believe, that he was throwing, which is a great topwater. I actually had one. I really liked it. I lost it. I haven't been able to acquire a new one. I just haven't been by anywhere that had one lately. But I plan on picking up another one. It's kind of a good in-between size walking bait. And it's a little different shape. It's more of a bluegill shape or actual fish shape than like, you know, a stick shape like most walking baits. But yeah, that was probably a 5.5, 6 pounder that grabbed it at first, and then she jumped. You can hear me telling him to drop the rod tip. He didn't really know what I meant yet. See her jump, throw the hook. But literally as the lure lands, and before he can even process what just happened, another fish grabs it, and I'm like, set the hook, you got another one. And he did, and we landed that one, and that was a damn good fish. It's like 4.5 pounds. So just because I spit the hook doesn't mean you need to stop reeling it in and working. Reel it in, you should stop and continue to work, especially with something like a topwater. They could be following that other fish, and that's what happened. I mean, and it makes a nice wrap up to those 2 dramatic bites in a row. I mean, it was 2 separate days, but 2 pretty separately dramatic incidences with Calvin. And, you know, some cautionary tales for him and all of us out there. Check your line, drop your point down, you know, use the right rod and reel. There's a reason why you can get so nerdy into stuff. Like, doesn't mean you have to for every single technique, but there are some things that specialized tackle does help with. That's all I gotta say. Well, we're on to bite number 167. This is another Rodman video, but this time I was out there solo. I think I got out there in the afternoon. And the one thing about Rodman, I can tell, I don't mind giving away the secret, the topwater bite there is strictly pre-dawn and post-sunset. Well, I should say mostly that. The frog bite's a little different. If they're schooling shad, it's a little different. But on a normal day, even if they're feeding on shad, but they're not like super schooly shad, they stop hitting topwater as soon as the sun comes up, and they won't hit it till the sun goes down. And so, doesn't mean they left the area, especially in an area with current, bait fish around. It just means that they kind of stop looking up and they start either hiding around the current or cover. The punching bass that Calvin caught was hiding under cover. This fish was hiding in the current. But before I break it down anymore, why don't you watch bite number 167. This is me solo on Rodman. Check it out.
Finally a bass on the swim jig. Short strike. Troller's still going.
Rodman, like I said, was where I was hitting for a few weeks. Like pretty much for 3 weeks, I only went there, like 2 or 3 times a week. And this day, it was all about the swim jig. I was throwing my favorite swim jig, the Revenge swim jig, which is discontinued now. And a 12-pound-ish mudfish broke the hook right off. But luckily, I have one of my other favorite swim jigs in the boat, and this is the Dirty Jigs No Jack swim jig, which is the same hook as the California swim jig, a big beast of a hook. I was running it with a Gambler BigEZ on the back that day. This is the River to Sea D-Walker. Those are my 2 favorite swim bait trailers. The D-Walker lasts a little longer, but the BigEZ has a better wobble. But yeah, that day I switched to this because I broke my other favorite swim jig, which was amazing and sad all at the same time. But I was kind of throwing this around current and through the eddies and around the edge of cover. And this fish was kind of hiding on the edge of that current. And it didn't hit it till I let it fall and basically bounce it off the bottom like you would in like a football jig or something. But I find that when they're feeding on shad like that, sometimes you can do that with a swim jig. Just let it fall all the way to the bottom, pop it off the bottom, and then swim it in. Maybe let it fall a couple times in between, and they'll nail it. It's not something. It's something you do with chatterbaits, like or lipless, or even like a football jig. Like I said, basically I'll do that with a swim jig. It's like a more subtle version of all of those things. It's just visual. There's no sound to it. But I was throwing this on my general purpose, do everything setup that I love. My SLX combo, the same one I caught my PB on. Straight SLX reel, 8-2-1, not the XT or SLX, but the SLX rod. This is 7-2 medium heavy, extra or fast action. And I was running 30-pound straight X9 braid. And that's what I was throwing the swim jig on. No leader. I was just blacking out the braid like you would with a frog or a punching setup. I'll throw my swim jigs in heavy cover the same way. Straight braid with just a little marker the last few feet so I don't see it as much. But yeah, I mean, that spot was still on fire in the evening for topwater, but in the middle of the day I couldn't buy a bite on a topwater or a frog or anything. And it wasn't until I picked up the swim jig. I even tried punching because we had luck with, like in Calvin's video, punching, but I don't know. Also, I have to say, by this point, this is a week or 2 after me finding this spot and it being on fire, I wasn't the only one that knew about this spot. This was on a weekday, and I'd say I saw at least 4 or 5 other bass boats stop in that area. I kind of was doing a figure 8 through that area and another area nearby, so I could still see what was going on. And there's definitely 4 or 5 boats that came through there. Since then, the bites died. We lost the current. We haven't had rain. The bites died there. Sure, there's somewhere on Rodman they're biting. I just haven't been there in a couple weeks because I don't have a way to get out. But I think once a spot like that starts getting pressure, it gets harder to catch them on the go-to things like topwater or punching or even a chatterbait. I tried that, didn't get a single bite. That's when something like a swim jig or even a regular jig, or a Johnson silver minnow. Actually, I threw for a little bit, got a couple bites, or a silent jerk bait, or a silent square bill, something that isn't the same as what everybody else was throwing. And that day, it turned out to be a swim jig for me. I had tried all those other things and got 1 or 2 bites on 1 or 2 of those lures, but as soon as I put on this kind of, it's like a shad golden shiner colored swim jig, which was the same color as the one that broke, I just started getting nailed, and I knew that was the bait for the day. And, you know, that was the only one I caught on film. So there you have it, the bite of the day, number, what was it, 167. But yeah, the same day as that is bite number 168. It's still on Rodman, obviously, because same day, I didn't move lakes. Although I do that sometimes. I'll start in the morning, take a break and lunch, and then move to another lake. But I only get out on Rodman this time in the afternoon. So this was as the sun was setting, or had just set, actually, to be more accurate. But topwater bite turned on, like I said. So why don't you check it out before I explain to you what happened this day that was different than the other day. There we go. Sunset bass. Good one too. Strong one at least. Oh, I got him in the head. He must have smacked it. $68 gunfish. It's here again. Same one. 95. Everything I said about it in the first or the second bite of the day in this review is the same. It was amazing. More about timing. I had fished that same area probably 5 times that day. Like I said, I was doing like a figure 8 through this area where I knew the fish were. I could see them, even could graph a few, but they weren't coming up to bite. As soon as that sun set, like literally the sun had to set, I started catching fish on topwater. And the only reason I didn't catch even more is that I had run out of bug spray. So bass weren't the only thing biting. The mosquitoes were horrible. I don't know if you ever fished in this part of Florida in the late summer, early fall, but that's when the mosquitoes are at their worst. They know their feeding time is coming to an end. I mean, it's brutal. So I literally left biting fish because I couldn't stop getting bit by mosquitoes. It was quite an ordeal. I caught at least 4 fish in that window. The first one being the best, which is the one that you saw. Gunfish, topwater setup, same rod and reel, the X9 braid to 30-pound braid to 17-pound leader, 6.6 medium heavy, old school rod on the SLX XT. And I was basically going around to all the spots that I knew there was a break in depth change. So like I said, it's like a 6-foot flat. And I had actually gone on to Google Maps and looked at the area during a drawdown, and you could see, I think what I was seeing are like flooded farm fields, and these were either the roads or just like, you know, the little division area, I'm blanking on what you would call that, between the fields. Because there's only a foot or 2 difference. Like it's going from like 5-6 feet to 4.5, 3.5 feet. But basically the fish would be hiding behind that break. So even though I was throwing a topwater, I had to throw over those breaks, and that's when they'd come up and nail it. Like they were definitely orienting towards the matted vegetation as well, but if there wasn't a break, there weren't as many fish. Like you might get a bite here or there near the matted vegetation on the edge, But if you found a break, you could fish in the middle and still get a bite, and fish on each end of the vegetation and still get a bite. I mean, just goes to show, sometimes you can just stumble upon something and then go back. That's what happened here. Is I stumbled upon this area. I just knew I wanted to check it out. I had never fished it before. I fished it with Calvin, in the second bite of the day video in this roundup or recap. But then I went and I researched the area and figured out why I was catching the fish where I was catching them, and found more of that similar thing that you could find with your graph, but it's such a small change that is not on every map. So it wasn't on my map in my older Lowrance. So going on Google Maps explained to me why they were where they were, and I could then go and check out those areas on the lake. I actually went into Google Maps or Google Earth, and like I said, I looked at a drawdown photo of the lake and had marked drop pins, exported those in the format. If you go actually to Lowrance's website, they'll tell you how to do it. I formatted it, put it on an SD card, and loaded those points, and now they're waypoints on my graph. So I knew exactly where to go, exactly where to throw. But, like I said, I threw there in the middle of the day, and they weren't there. They came out as the sun went down, and they were feeding in that area. I had to find more specific current eddies and breaks during the daylight, or punch for them, depending on which day you were there and what pressure they were under. So, I'm not saying I wouldn't have caught these fish just fishing, but I definitely caught them just fishing the first day. But to keep that bite going for a few weeks, especially with the added pressure of actual real people also trying to catch fish, I had to do my research and break it down to be able to confidently know where to go at what time. And it's a little nerdy, but I'm a big nerd about a lot of things, so why not be about fishing, right? So yeah, that's a long version of bite number 168, topwater bite on Rodman. I mean, there's so many, because like I said, we got stuck fishing Rodman a lot, and that was late September, early October. All right, well, and bite number 168 is next, and it's the return of my friend Amy. Amy was in a couple of bite of the day videos early on, and she set her PB in bite of the day number 22. If you want to go back, I'll have a link at the bottom. But yeah, she catches her PB in that video, but we broke it in this video. So why don't you check this out, and I'll tell you what we did. Bite number 168, my friend Amy's new PB.
He swirled at it, but he didn't get it. There he is. Good one. Just got under it. Oh. Oh my God, you got him?
Yes.
Awesome, a double. You caught in the grass?
No.
He's just that strong?
Yeah.
Feeling. That's a big fish. Stop, just hold the pressure, hold the pressure. Here, I'm gonna get rid of my fish. I was gonna try to get a picture, but that's too big of a fish. Come lean this way. Just lean it in.
You take your fit. Holy crap, Ted!
That's your new PB right there, Amy.
Wow, that's a big fish. Dang, that's amazing.
So, cheers to my friend Amy breaking her new PB after breaking her previous one that I helped her set. So yeah, cheers. Amy tends to fish saltwater. Her and her boyfriend are big saltwater fishermen, but she's one of my oldest friends, and every now and then I get to sneak her out on the, to go bass fishing, and she really likes it. She throws spinning gear. The rod and reel she had here was actually it's an SLX, not SLX. It's a Shimano Stratix reel. I know because now that I fixed them, I can recognize them. On I don't remember the name of the rod, but it was a nice, super nice inshore spinning rod, like a medium heavy 7-foot, that I had actually just extended the cork grip for her, which is something I probably should have recorded, but I was figuring it out as I went along. And this was the first day she actually got to use this rod because it was so uncomfortable until I extended the grip. So not only did she get her PB with me, I fixed her rod for her. But so, Amy's favorite lure is a speed worm. This is the basic speed. This is the same brand. She was using this color, and then the black with the blue tail, I think, is what we put on when she caught that one. This is the plum, apple plum or something like that color. But this is the Bass Assassin's version of a big speed worm, which I actually prefer to pretty much all the other ones that I've tried. The gamblers are good, but the hooks rip out. You end up having to use them a lot or replace them a lot. The zooms have great action, but sometimes the tails will just break off or wrap around a weed and snap off. I feel like this Bass Assassin worm is the best of the bigger speed worms with the actual curly tail. And I'd rig that for her like I rig all my weightless speed worms, Florida rigged with the little clear plastic gambler bullet weight, which if you watch my Florida rig video or even any of my other bite of the day videos where I'm throwing a stick bait or a speed worm, you've seen it. And throwing it with a specific hook, the Mustad, was it big mouth tube hook, and I just rig it Florida rigged. And like I said, I have a whole video on it. If you want to check it out, I'll link it in the bottom. There's a reason why I use that hook and that clear bullet for a speed worm and for a stick bait. But so we were fishing this spot, and I just got a bite. I just landed, or just hooked into this small fish. It's like maybe a 1-pounder. And she threw right back where I had just hooked this one because she saw something else splash. So it's literally almost the exact same spot I had casted to. She hooks into an even better fish. And as you can see, like, she's pretty excited. Even though she still has that, I call it the Amy patented hook set style, where she doesn't get out of her seat. She leans back. She has her foot either on the motor or on the gunnel. She just leans into it. Classic Amy hook set. But it works. She gets the rod up, gets that hook in, and she caught that 4.5-pounder. And I had to throw my fish back to help her catch that one. Because the last time she got one, she just tried to boat flip it in an awkward way. And I was like, this fish, I want to land it. I don't want her to boat flip it. But if you fish in Florida, you know the power of the swimming worm or speed worm. I don't really understand why it's not. I don't know if it doesn't work as well in other places, or people are just stubborn and don't appreciate the worm for what it is. I know my friend Justin, who now lives in Florida, when he was living in California, pulled one out, and the guy he was fishing with didn't even know what it was. And he caught a fish on it. And I know even Matt Allen has spoken about he doesn't understand why people don't fish a swimming worm more. But if you fish in Florida, it's definitely something you need to learn. Especially because you can fish it weedless, almost like a topwater. It's like a more subtle BigEZ, which is like a weedless whopper plopper. So it's almost like a weedless, subtle buzzbait. But then you can let it sink and actually fish it like a worm as well. They're amazing. And now that's 2 PBs in a row that Amy's caught on a speed worm. Well, now we're past Amy's PB. We're on to bite number 169. I threw this in here because I wanted to prove I don't just catch fish on the Yozuri popper or the Luckycraft gunfish. I do occasionally try other walking baits or other topwaters. So why don't you check out bite number 169, the Luckycraft Sammy catching me a bass.
There we go. That's a better fish.
That's a decent fish.
Yes.
I don't think it's a bass.
I think it is because of the way it's shaking its head. Yeah. I was going to say it's shaking its head. You're good. I'm not gonna boat flip this guy. I want to see where those hooks are too first.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm hook shy.
He knocked the piss out of it. I know.
Yeah. I saw that one coming.
You
A little chunkier.
4 times? 5 times?
No, he's 3.5.
All of us bass fishermen, once we get confidence in the lure, it tends to be our go-to. And that's definitely happened with me with the Azuri popper and the Luckycraft gunfish and the Berkeley popper. But sometimes I want something different. Or you've already fished that area once and you got the fish that was going to bite that lure and the other fish are like, I'm not going to bite that. So that's what happened this day. I'd gone by this spot with a popper. I'd caught a fish, not as good as this one, but they stopped hitting it. And so I decided to tie on the big Luckycraft Sammy. This is the 115, I think. 3 hooks, sits in the water like this, much different profile than this or the Azuri popper that I was throwing. And this is maybe my second cast I made with it. And it here has a louder knock than a lot of the top waters I use. And this is a big topwater. It's not so big that I worry about bass not eating it. It's just big enough that they want to be looking up and eating something on the surface to grab that. And apparently that's what they wanted to do this day. Because as soon as I put this on, same spot, I had totally not gotten a bite the time I went past it before. Got that one to come up and hit this. I was throwing that on my same topwater setup. That's why I throw these slightly, I guess, slightly less parabolic rods than most people would throw topwaters on, is that I throw everything from a little popper to a big walker on the same rod. Also, I like the little stiffer rod because it lets me pop stuff or twitch stuff out of weeds without pulling the whole weed out. I can actually get it and cut the weed because it's fast enough that it doesn't just pull the weed out. I can cut the weed with the rod's power. If you're using a more moderate rod, you just kind of pull and it doesn't snap it and doesn't pull it free. Because I've tried using the rod that I use for my jerkbaits as a topwater rod. That's originally what I bought it for. And it's a great topwater, or it's a great jerkbait rod. It's got a great tip with enough backbone that once you set that hook, you can get the hook in and keep them pegged but still get them in. It's definitely got a faster tip and more of a backbone than my crankbait rod of the same size and power. But that's not enough for the way I fish my topwaters. Like I said, also it has to do with the size of topwaters. I'll throw everything up until this. Anything bigger than this, and I'll switch rods to whatever else I happen to have that might work. Maybe even just my general purpose 7.2 medium heavy. Because when you start getting 3 big hooks, it's not as important to be as parabolic. It always helps with treble hooks, but when you get those 3 hooks flapping around, sometimes you'll hook them more than once while they shake their head. But yeah, it was just paying attention to the fact that I wasn't getting any attention to the gunfish or to a popper that made me switch, because I felt like they were still going to hit topwater. I just had to give them something else. And the Sammy, if you don't know about it, it's one of the baits that made Luckycraft famous. This and like the 1.5 and probably a gunfish. It changed the game of walking baits. I mean, the Zare Spook by Hedden is the grandfather of all walking baits. And it's a great bait. I love it. But I found a bunch of these Luckycrafts at all these, so I have a huge like stockpile of Luckycraft baits, all because I find them at discount prices. And this changed the way, or changed walking baits, because it sits ass down more than a spook does. So it does this. It doesn't just go like this. It doesn't just go like that. It'll go boom, boom, boom. So that's just another little action that's a little different, and it's got a unique sound. I mean, the Zare Spook has a knocker in it too, I believe, or at least the ones I do have. but still gets bit, even though it's, I guess, technically one of Luckycraft's classic baits. I still change all the hooks out though on all these baits, on all the Luckycraft baits. I just feel like they could use a slightly stouter hook. All the hooks are plenty sharp, but just one little stouter hook. But I believe I switched this one is these are all the G Finesse hooks by Gamakatsu, which aren't necessarily thicker, but they are stronger, and they are the sharpest hooks I own. I mean, the ST36 by Owner is very sharp, and so are the Berkeley X9s, X19s. But these Gamakatsu G Finesse hooks, you can't even touch the bait. And I like putting them on some of my topwaters and jerk baits where I think they're going to slap at it, so there's no chance of them slapping at it and not getting hooked. It's a little extra insurance on landing that bite, or even getting that topwater bite to actually stay on, not just slap it. Well, the last bite of the day of October is bite number 171, and it's another topwater bite, but it's not the only thing in the video. I also get a nice hook to the finger. Seemed appropriate to put out on Halloween, so this was my Halloween video. So before I explain to you everything that happened, and a lot happened, why don't you watch this, bite number 171, topwater and blood bite. There we go. Another good one. I love that plop when it's a big one. Come here, buddy. You got a hook in me. So appropriate Halloween video, eh? A little blood, a little bass, a little blood. This is a similar area that I was with Amy when she got her PB. I was throwing gunfish. Again, they were hitting it. They were hitting it good, real good. And we all know with treble hook baits, you should probably use a net. But I don't use a net very often. Actually, in the next bite of the review, or if you've been watching my bite of the day through November, you can definitely hear me say, grab the net, because of this particular moment. It's not the first time I get a fish hook in my hand. It's probably actually the third time in the last 2 years. But let me tell you, this is the first time I did it by myself. Not fun. But yeah, let me talk about the fish roll first. Nothing special compared to what we already talked about. Throwing my topwater on my same topwater setup, Luckycraft Gunfish 95, this color. Good fish. I had just hooked an even better fish, maybe even a 6-pounder on the same bait, and it only got the back hook and it bent it out, like literally a couple minutes before this video. So I knew they were around, I knew we were hitting topwater, so I was really excited. So I started throwing it again, got this fish, got it to boat, went to reach down, and even before I land it, it gets the hook in me. So you can hear me trying to pull on the line to get the fish in, because the hook's already in my finger. I was able to cut the lure off of the hook, but before I did that, I did get the fish off of the lure, and I got the photo, because I was like, this is going to be in a video. Let me get a picture of the fish, just holding it up, let it go. And then I went online to see if I could find a better video on doing this braid trick by yourself. I've done the braid trick before. I've had some other people do it before. In fact, I'll stick that video here at the end because I don't think I've ever put it out, where Captain Mikey does the braid trick to my hand. Another topwater bass, but on Rainbow River. I'll put that at the end of this. That'll be the last thing. But doing it by yourself is tricky because you have to yank on it really hard. It has to be well secured, and you have to do all the tying, all the stuff by yourself. And you know, I found one video online that the guy did it, but he's taking way too long to explain it. He didn't say anything different than what I knew. I think he got his out too. But so I just was like, okay, I know what to do. I just have to do it. So like I said, I cut the split ring off. Always keep a pair of wire cutter dikes in your boat or in your pack if you're fishing with baits with treble hooks, because it's much easier to cut that split ring than it is to take out anything and get the split ring off or the hook off. And it is 100 times easier to deal with a hook in your finger if you don't have a lure hanging off it, especially if it has 1 or 2 more treble hooks hanging off of it. As any of us who've caught a fish with 2 or more treble hooks on a bait, where you've unhooked one hook just to rehook them with another hook, you can do that to yourself, and it's not advisable. But yeah, I was like, okay, I know what to do. I cut off some braid from one of my rods. I was able to tie it around the hook with my left hand and teeth, pull it tight. And then I decided to sit down at the console and just basically tie the braid in a knot around the steering wheel because it was solid. I could move around to get it lined up. And so the trick with the braid trick is that you put the braid at the base of the hook where it goes in, right at the base of the bend, and you pull straight, and that turns the barb. It's like if the barb is in your hand like this, right? It's up like this. When you pull it that way, it goes like that out. When you're trying to pull it straight, the barb gets stuck. So when you do that, it comes out. So, got the braid tied on, got the braid tied to the steering wheel, and I was holding the line taut and next to my finger with my other hand. And the hardest thing about this is tricking yourself to pull that hook fast and hard enough. Because when somebody else does it, obviously it's easy, they're doing it. And it really doesn't take any time at all, it pops out, you feel better. But to do it yourself, you can't trick yourself. So it's just a matter of doing it. And luckily, I got it on the first try. I didn't even particularly pop it that hard or fast. I just moved far enough. And that was the key. Like if I had stopped halfway, it wouldn't have come out. So I just pushed past the hook, even though I didn't go like that. I more went like that. It was far enough and fast enough and pulling at the right angle that hook popped out. I hope to never do that again, but it's nice to know I can. I got that hook out, and I caught several more nice fish that day. I didn't go in, of course, like I got the hook out. Once it's out, it doesn't hurt at all. I just put a little Neosporin and hydrogen peroxide, actually in the opposite order, hydrogen peroxide and Neosporin, that I keep on the boat. Also good to keep a first aid safety kit on your boat with some sterilizing stuff and Neosporin and Band-Aids. Keep my wire cutters in there. I keep Swiss Army knife, what else? Some soap some gauze, and some tape, and some super glue. Those are all in like just the emergency like wound kit. Like I have allergy medicine, Advil, and all that kind of stuff in another box. But yeah, don't hook yourself. Buy yourself and do this if you don't have to. I imagine none of us would want to do it. But I proved that you can do it by yourself if you just take the time and think it out. Get the lure off of the hook. Get something secure to tie the other end of the braid to, and just pull quickly enough and far enough to pop the hook out, and you'll get it out. Wow, that was, like I said, the Halloween episode of the Bite of the Day, which means we're at the end of October's Bite of the Day videos. I hope you appreciate it. Well, we got a lot more good ones in November. We got a couple that I had to use some old ones, but they're all time oriented to the same time of the year. They might have been older bites that I hadn't used just because I haven't been able to get out on the water for the last almost 3 weeks now because of my van's transmission. Hopefully it'll be fixed this week. That won't be an issue. But stay tuned. I'll throw in that extra hook removal with me and Mikey at the end of this video. It's a lot easier, but still pretty dramatic. But thanks again for checking out my Bite of the Day video and the recap. Hope to see you here again. I'm Ted from Ted Lincoln's Fishing Life. Cheers. I'm out.
There we go, top water bite. No question about that one. That's the best one today. About the same as that jig bass. I was like, it's got to be dark enough now. There you go. I just got a hook in my hand.
Bad?
Yeah. Can you unhook this fish?
There's an 8-pounder right there. And I just got a hook in my hand. This is not what you want right here. That's bad. You just catch an 8-pounder, you want to get back in there. But I've got to get that out, and the only way to do it is with braided line. So I'm going to have to... Hey, I need...
Got a hook in his hand here. We tied braid around it a couple times. Googled how to...
Watch KVD do it.
Yeah,
Ooh, don't.
Yeah. Kevin
Here's-
McDam showed me how to do this.
Here's the other end.
So, this is the end I need. Oops. Alright, so he said to get it about there, leave a little bit of slack. Alright, I would hold your hand back. So
Would
I
like
pull
this?
your arm. Yeah. I'm just gonna pop it. I'm not even gonna tell you when I did it.
Freaking worked.
I don't know. Ah, it's in my head. No, I'm kidding. There it is.
Look at that.
Did that hurt?
No.
It's like how I was talking, so you didn't know I was gonna do it.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah.
Whew. Work. So Peter tells me. Ow. 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 Ow, 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 ow.
Nope.
Let me just see your knife. It's sharp? Because my knife isn't very sharp.
Super sharp.
Not the best dikes in the world, but dikes. Oh, that's good. So you're gonna have to pull. You okay with that?
Yeah.
My toe, since it's an appendage.
And so I'm just
And
gonna,
you're gonna pull straight down. Yep. It works. Can you do me a favor?